it's going to get him killed, and he goes a little too far. And welcome back to the Sundowners Club. I'm your host, Sean, and today we're going to be covering House of the Dragon, Episode 8, Lord of the Tides. And before we get started, I want to ask you if you like what you see today or what you hear, leave a comment below, hit the like button, and most importantly, hit subscribe because that's how we're going to grow the channel. I'd like to introduce my co-host to my right, Sterling. What's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you?
I'm doing good. Before we recap, give me just your general thoughts. Good episode, one of the better ones. What are your thoughts on what we just saw?
Every episode I think has gotten better as it's gone on. I think it's one of the shows that you actually look forward to the next episode, which is not necessarily true for everything we'll be talking about. But I thought it was great. I think it sets up there's 2 episodes left, I think, right?
We've got one now.
1 episode left. Okay, so
No, we have 2. We have 2 left.
2 left. So yeah, I think it sets up the remainder of the season pretty well, and I liked it. So far, so good.
So we start off the episode in Driftmark, and you and I talked about some of the things around Lord Corlys were shown off screen. So yeah, when we get into the episode, we have we're being told that Lord Corlys has been away in battle. The Triarchy has reemerged, and Lord Corlys has been gravely wounded. He's gotten his neck slashed. He has a high fever.
He's on his deathbed, and we didn't see any of that.
Yeah, we didn't see it, but we did see his brother Vaymond bring in his case to Rhaenys, who is sitting on the seat of Driftmark in her husband's stead, and he is addressing the claim of Jace for being the Lord of Driftmark. And honestly, Vaymond, we've seen a little bit of Vaymond Valerian, the brother of Corlys, in a few prior episodes, but he makes a strong case. He references that his brother is concerned with the history books, and he's concerned with his family and the bloodline, and
right.
And everybody knows that Jace is not part of that bloodline, but he's going to inherit Driftmark.
Obvious, yeah.
And so he's got a good case, and he's got one that seems fair and logical, and you kind of feel for him because you know that this is putting him in the firing line, so to speak, especially if the lines are drawn a certain way. And how did you think that played out? Did you feel invested in Vaymond's claim? Did you think that was a good scene to start the episode? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, so this takes place, it was 170 years, right, before Game of Thrones. So I don't remember anyone that has a Valerian name in Game of Thrones. So instantly when the show started, I kind of knew that family wasn't going to, things weren't going to end up too well for them. But I thought it led to the best part of the show, honestly. So, I mean.
Yeah, we're building, right? We're
yeah.
building towards, that when the episode starts and Vaymond has that scene, that there's a payoff coming.
Yeah, I understand where he's coming from, but I don't care about that family, honestly. Like, you knew things weren't going to turn out well for them, and I mean, it's just in Game of Thrones, the family that runs the seas is the
Greyjoys.
The Greyjoys.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know that things weren't going to work out well for them. But I thought it led to probably the best part of the show, and yeah, I completely understand where he's coming from, but it was expected. I knew things weren't going to turn out well for them.
So we leave Driftmark and it cuts to Dragonstone, which I thought was a really cool scene because we've really, in the past, we've only seen the bridge leading to the castle on Dragonstone, some scenes along the beach in Game of Thrones, and we've seen a few shots in House of the Dragon so far, but we get to see basically the volcanic background of Dragonstone, and we see Daemon going down in there to find a clutch with 3 dragon eggs from Syrax, which is for those that are still learning the names of the dragons, and you might want to be prepared because there are going to be even more dragons in the coming seasons. So Syrax is Rhaenyra's dragon, and it's important because we know that there are other babies that have arrived.
Right.
We will see a few later in the episode, but he brings these dragon eggs. And then we go inside to Dragonstone, and we've got another time jump. So we see Jace, who's now older, and he is learning Valerian. And we see the third son, Joffrey. Strange name for a child at this point in the show, but
All right.
so what I know we've talked about the time jump before. Are you a little bit more comfortable with the time jump now, knowing that maybe we're done? Like it feels like we're going to stick with these actors and actresses that are playing these parts now. The the Damon's daughters, and then you've got Jason, Luke, and then you've got Aegon and Aemon. So it seems like we're done with the time jumps for those that
I
are
hope
knowledgeable
so.
about the books.
Yeah, I hope so. Honestly, I think and the cast they have now is all. I think they're all real good. I liked what's his name, One Eye. Kind of reminds me.
Aemon.
It's like Hannibal Lecter with a blonde wig on. He's kind of creepy, but I think he's a good character. And his brother, I think he's going to kind of end up being the Joffrey of the show, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a little more sadistic. But Aemon, I think, is the fighter, So he's kind of like his muscle, and it seems like to me they're building up a battle between him and Daemon. It seems to be something there, like maybe he admires him.
He's too powerful.
Yeah.
You don't get a sense, and we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, you definitely don't get a sense that the way that they're and the actor that's actually playing Aemon, he's been in some other things, and I really liked him. So I knew when they cast him thought that was going to be an interesting casting choice. And before we get to that though, and we see him in the training yard for the first time, and he's battling with Sir Kristen Cole. We see King's Landing, which it's changed a little bit. So when Rhaenyra and Daemon show up at King's Landing, knowing that there's going to be a contesting before Otto and or Alicent sitting in their king's place, that they know they have to go have this discussion and fight for Jace's seat at Driftmark. We see that when they go into the palace, that the 7-pointed star of the faith has now replaced the Targaryen sigil above the throne. Daemon clearly takes note of that. I thought that the cutting to the scene of Alicent running the small council and she's wearing it around her neck shows you the political savviness and growth of Alicent now, understanding that she needs allies, and so you see the beginning of that, right, with the faith and the seven and Alicent's use of that. And so, I thought that was interesting. And then you see that, which I thought was another character building scene, and she's actually alerted to Aegon, her son's chambers, Aegon the second, and he is sexually assaulted, raped a young chambermaid, Diana, I think is her name.
Right.
And you see Alicent. It almost makes it seem, it does make it seem like this is a pattern for Aegon. They set that up a few episodes ago as he was growing up, that he was not going to be a character that's very respectful of women. And he was not going to be a character that was going to be comfortable being pushed along to take the throne from Rhaenyra, per his Otto and his mother. And so I thought that scene was very important, how basically she scolds him, and he says, I never asked for any of this. And I thought that was a little bit of future building as well in relation to his brother Aemond, because Aegon has a completely different view of his role in things. And so I thought that was interesting. And then we get to, you mentioned earlier, the training yard, where Jason and Luke are walking around, they're joking, they're looking, we haven't been here in a while. Right. And then they see Aemon training, and when he turns, they see the patch, and they have that, moment. Yeah. And I thought that Sir Kristen Cole is saying, you're ready for the tourneys, you'll do well in the tourneys, and Aemon says, I'm not training for tournaments.
Right.
And so that's a little concerning.
And he had the biggest dragon too. I think he does.
He has Vagar. So not only is Aemon the most well trained, potentially the most violent, he's got the baddest dragon, the biggest dragon. Right. So he's definitely not somebody to be trifled with. I think in a few short episodes they've set that table very well. They showed Aemon being bullied and teased by the brothers and by his own brother. and they've seen him really longing for a dragon and all the things that build up to that. And now you have him in a position where he can call the shots. And everybody seems a little bit hesitant when around him. And you see that scene play out a little bit later. But and then we see Vaemond Valerian arrive to petition for Driftmark. So we know that this decision is coming to a head, and it's going to have ramifications for not only Jace's seat at Driftmark, but for his mother's seat on the Iron Throne. So if you question the legitimacy of Jace and Luke, then you also are questioning Rhaenyra. So it's important. They lay the groundwork for that. We see Rhaenyra, I thought, a really good scene with her and Rhaenys where she knows she's in a weak position. She knows she's walking into a trap, and she propositions Rhaenys that, hey, I want to have my sons marry your granddaughters, and we will unite the families. And I thought that was a pretty good scene. Two of the strong women. We haven't seen much of Rhaenys yet. What do you think about Rhaenys? I know you didn't read the book, so you don't know what's coming there, but what do you think about the role she's played so far? I mean, it's been very much in the background, but she's had some really good scenes. What are your thoughts around that and kind of that scene in particular with her and Rhaenyra, and there's negotiation going on, right?
I think she kind of goes with the flow, and it was when after Daemon split that guy's head in half.
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler. Sorry. She ends up basically taking the deal of Rhaenyra, which I thought was, she acted like she wasn't going to do that, but I mean, she ends up having her back in the end. So I think it was really more to do with, I think she knew at that moment if she challenged her that things wouldn't end up well for her. So she just kind of went along with it. And
Rhaenys has wisdom, and she's the queen who was never named, right? And so the queen to never meant to be, and you see the scene that she had a few weeks ago where she was sitting down talking to her husband Corlys, and she wanted the girls to inherit Driftmark, and talking about she's got a lot of wisdom, and you see that she has the ability to adapt very quickly. So you mentioned the scene in the halls of King's Landing as Otto convenes to make this decision. But before that, we see, which is a very pivotal scene, we see Rhaenyra and Daemon go to visit Viserys. And I know people have been thinking, when is this guy going to die? And they walk in, and Viserys is not long for the world.
Right.
He's got the bandage over the face.
Really
He's got
bad.
the rotting teeth.
Great CGI, by the way, which I'm sure that was definitely CGI, not makeup.
Well, yeah, the scene a little bit later where they sit him up and they're trying to give him the milk of the poppy. They're clearly the bones. I don't know if he'll win an Emmy. We'll have to look at who else is nominated. But if Paddy Considine, we mentioned this before, if he's not nominated for an Emmy, that he did an amazing job this season as Viserys. The guy every single week just wants his family to be there for each other, to protect each other, and for them to protect the realm. And
I heard in the books he was more passive, right? Like I heard he's a little different.
Yeah, I don't think that they haven't diverged too much from Viserys's storyline. There are other things. My main thing with the books is that you have to let go of when characters were born, how old they are.
Right.
Because that's obviously changed in the show. I've had people say, well, this character's supposed to be 10 years old. They're not on the show.
Right.
They're older. So you just have to get over that. Not everything. Just like with Song of Fire and Ice, there are going to be changes. But I thought the scene where we know Viserys is dying now, and it's coming. It's happening fast. But the important thing is that we now know there are two more babies, and Rhaenyra introduces. And for people that paid attention to the scene or didn't hear the names, she introduces Aegon III and Viserys II, named after his grandfather.
Right.
And those are important babies for those that are going to be keeping up with what's going to happen on House of the Dragon and the future of Westeros. So remember the names Aegon III and Viserys II. Viserys, you mentioned the CGI. He knows that something's happening. He's a little confused when they start talking about the Driftmark as being contested, and so he's he's going in and out of understanding what's going on. But he gets up. He doesn't drink the milk of the poppy. And so he's trying to get himself ready because he knows that something important is going to be happening. And so, we now go to the hall, and one of the things that people have asked is we now see the brothers with each other. You've got Aegon II, Alicent's son, and you've got Aemond. And clearly Aemon's about 6 inches taller than Aegon, even though in the last episode he was half his size. What I'll say to that is, in the books, there are 3 years, I believe, that separate them in age. And so I think the answer is, it's a little bit of a murky answer, but as we've had another time jump, the younger brother is taller than the older brother. In real life, my younger brother is 4.5 inches taller than me. So it happened. As we've had this time jump, Aemon has gotten bigger and stronger. And look, he's battle trained. We don't have any sense that Aegon II has done any training in the ensuing years. So we know that Aemon has been focused on that. And so that would be the explanation I would have, is that he's the younger brother, yes, but in the books, they're not separated by very many years in age. And so he just grew taller than him. But we see Rhaenyra in the hall, and Otto is about to make a ruling, and Rhaenyra is going to lose. And then all of a sudden, the doors open up, and we see King Viserys with the gold mask and the cane and the long, long walk to the Iron Throne. One of my favorite scenes. I know we're going to talk about your favorite scene from the episode. My favorite scene absolutely was Viserys, gathering up what strength he had left to walk down in front of everyone, climb the steps to the Iron Throne. He drops the crown. His brother is there.
That was improvised, you know that?
Oh, the scene where he walks.
Yeah.
He drops he drops the crown.
He dropped the crown on. I read about that. He dropped the crown on accident, and then Matt Smith went in to pick it up and put it on his head. That actually wasn't planned.
My favorite scene of the episode by far. Probably my favorite scene of this season so far. I know you have a different favorite scene, but that scene where Matt Smith, Damon, is finally there. He always wanted to be the hand for his brother. That's all he ever wanted. He mentions that. He's there to support his brother at the end of the day when it matters most, and he sits on the throne, and now everybody is scared because they know that they're about to make a decision, and Viserys has snuffed that out. So we have Vaemon Valerian. All he has to do was understand and read the room and turn around and walk out the door, but he doesn't. He stands on his belief. You got to give it to him.
To know his audience.
Yeah, he's doing what he believes is right, but it's going to get him killed. And he goes a little too far. He calls Rhaenyra a whore. He calls the boys bastards. And then your favorite scene of the episode.
Well, Varys, he says he's gonna take his tongue, right? And
Viserys pulls out the cat's paw dagger.
Yeah, says, I'll take your tongue for that. And then next thing you know, Daemon takes his head off, says you can keep your tongue. So he's just sitting there. You see like half the skull. That was also pretty good CGI there too.
Very good.
So it's
a little reminiscent
brutal.
of Game of Thrones with Arya and Littlefinger. A little bit reminiscent of that scene.
Yeah, I actually thought this is more brutal though than that though.
What's interesting is earlier in the season when Daemon went in to defeat the crab feeder and the Triarchy, the Stepstones, we didn't see him slice the guy in half.
Yeah.
So we're wondering, like, okay,
I was kind of upset that was taken off screen.
They didn't show it, but we get to see Dark Sister just completely slice the guy and his head in half. So amazing scene, and so now it has been resolved, and now we go to every family has to have a great dinner, so we have this dinner where you have people pitted on each side, and they bring Viserys in, and again Viserys has to give one more speech about, I want everybody to love each other, I want everybody to support each other. And then you get a sense, and they were building this throughout the episode, Alicent and Rhaenyra were pretty good to each other from the beginning of this episode, even though they had a few differences in the things that they talked about, but they weren't arguments. You get a sense that maybe there's a small, I don't think that they didn't make it seem like in the scene that they were doing this just temporarily to make Viserys happy. it seemed to come from the heart that Rhaenyra was like, "Hey, you were once my friend,"
Right.
and she toasts the queen. But now, the sins of mothers and fathers. Now you have, you've taken the genie out of the bottle. These kids have grown up, and they've formed rivalries, and they know what's at stake, and the parents aren't going to be able to stop what's coming. So now they've created what in essence is going to be this civil war, and I don't think it matters what Allison or Rhaenyra think at this point, because the children who now are grown up, they have their own opinions and their own thoughts about what they want, and nobody has reined any of them in. And I think that whether you're on Team Green or Team Black, and you're pulling for Rhaenyra's kids or you're pulling for Allison's children, that they've all made mistakes, and you see that. Another question someone had asked me during the dinner was, you have a point where Aemon toasts the kids, Luke and Jace, and he talks about their attributes, and he's complimenting them, and he says, and he hesitates, and he says, and they're very so strong, and obviously that's an insult to them because their biological father was Harwin Strong, and so he's basically calling them bastards at the dinner. That's why, for those that maybe didn't catch that, that they stood up and were angry because he was in essence calling them strong, calling them from the line of strong family, and so they jump up, and you now have the foreshadowing of Daemon stepping in, because the boys can't defeat Aemon. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen without a dragon. It's not going to happen with Vhagar the dragon. So Daemon steps in, and you have that one scene where you have Daemon and Aemon, and they look similar to each other.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of foreshadowing that, look, these are the two toughest guys, the two, probably.
Kind of reminds me of in Game of Thrones, when they wanted to see the Mountain fight the Hound. Something similar to that. Like, that's the battle everybody, I think, wants to see.
Yeah,
and
you feel like that this, that this is building towards that, and Aemon. I thought the actor, his face with the mask or with the patch, man, the guy he has that glare to where it's what a great villain, and so
he does a really good job.
I thought that was a good scene, and so we see Viserys looking around the table before that fight happened, and he thinks everything's good. So I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to go rest. But so it sets a stage
Children
for
can't get along.
Yeah, it's for the end. So, Rhaenyra then makes a big mistake that I don't. I guess when you look back at historical figures and things that were done and not done, this has obviously happened throughout history, and so I think this story emphasizes how what can be perceived to be small decisions can be big ones. And so when Rhaenyra tells Alicent they're heading back to Dragonstone. She's pregnant, by the way. And so, maybe she's going back to Dragonstone to have the baby, but they're leaving Dragonstone, or they're leaving to go to Dragonstone from King's Landing. And I guess I didn't really understand, like, that your father's dying. That the throne, there's going to be a contesting of it. What Otto and Alicent's agendas are, and so there's going to be a question around this.
Bad time to leave.
Bad time to leave. And so that that I didn't really understand that move, and it happened really quick. But maybe that's how real life is. Things happen, and you don't realize the mistakes until you make them. But one of the things that we do need to talk about that explains a little bit of Game of Thrones, a little bit of retconning, so to speak, was when Rhaenyra was talking to Viserys. She's saying, "Look, before he ruled in her favor, she's saying, I need your help. You put this on me to protect the realm,
right,
and I need your help." And she's talking about the Song of Fire and Ice and and he says Aegon's dream, but they don't get to finish the conversation.
Yeah, he's kind of out of it.
He's a little out of it, and they don't get to finish the conversation. And so, she's asking for help. He ends up helping her. And now Viserys, again, poor guy, he goes back to the bed. He's dying, and he thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra. He's confused, and he's picking up the conversation around Aegon's dream. And now it's Alicent sitting there, and Alicent thinks he's talking about her son Aegon II.
Yeah.
And big mistake. We now know that when he talks about the prince who was promised in Aegon's dream and defending through the cold, we now know that it was Jon Snow, another Aegon Targaryen, who was the prince that was promised. But she thinks it's her son, and so she says, "I understand now. I understand." So that's going to have huge ramifications. So Viserys, once again, trying to do the right thing, makes a decision or does something that completely implodes everything that's going on around him. The guy can't have a victory, can't have a win, and he's going to die setting the table for the Targaryen Civil War, the Greens versus the Blacks. And I thought that was a fitting conclusion to Viserys' life, that it was just one more good intention mistake. And so as the show ends, we see Viserys laying in the bed, and he mentions, you know, his love Emma, his wife, and then we see the end of Viserys. And so we now know that the king has died, and we're going into the end of season 1 with the beginning of the war. It's going to be, they're going to lock the doors, they're going to pick a king or queen, things are going to transpire, and we're going to lead into season 2. But you know, overall thoughts of, you know, where it's going. You know, you feel good about it. The show, you feel good about, you know, the characters that now are going to be the central focus of the show, the brothers and the sisters, that are going to be
I'm
fighting
excited.
the fight.
I'm excited to watch it, but I honestly don't. I think we discussed this on the last episode. I don't know how many seasons they can go with it. I feel like this could
3 or
probably
4.
be. But
Maybe 5, but I don't know. That's stretching it, because in the books, and again, they don't have to stay true to any timeline. They can do what they want. But for those that maybe are trying to keep up, I believe, without giving anything away, the story's going to end. Rhaenyra's pregnant right now with a baby, and there are going to be things around that. But that puts us around 11 years before what I think is going to be the end of the show. Now, that could change. They could do whatever they want to do. But I believe that we won't have any more time jumps. The actors that are playing the characters now are going to play them all the way through. I think it's a 3-season. I think if it was a 3-season show, it'd be amazing. And they've moved fast enough where maybe they'll do that, because we know Jon Snow is coming.
Right.
We know that series is coming.
I think that's a mini series, though. I don't think that's going to be a big.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this one is limited. So I don't know. I don't see it. It can't go beyond 5 seasons. I think it's a 3 or 4 season arc. I'm excited where it's going. I have none of the actors. The casting's been amazing. The writing's been amazing. Cinematography is amazing. I think it's brought a lot of fans back. I think it's brought new fans to the show, to the stories, that are going to go back. And I saw that Game of Thrones is actually getting people watching it again, and people are buying books. And so
I think between both shows, it's the top streamed between Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Yeah. And not as many people have HBO Max as, you know, Netflix or Amazon Prime. So I mean, that's pretty impressive, considering there's not near as many people that have that service. So,
well, we'll be here to cover it. I think it was a great episode. I enjoyed Paddy Considine. Hate to see him go, but it was great for the story. Much like Ned Stark, laying the table, paving the way for the story to come is necessary from a plot device standpoint. So excited for the end of season 1. We'll be here to cover it. Thanks for joining. Remember to leave a comment below, hit the like button, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel so that we can grow the content. And TCB.